Welcome back to Into the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and evidently I'm now the eye with the guy with the sty eye.
The sty eye?
Yeah, for 2 weeks.
Oh,
for 2 weeks.
Oh, that is there. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, it was bad.
Was
it?
it?
It looked like I had a black eye.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's rude.
Yeah.
Rude.
It never hurt.
Yeah.
It was just annoying.
It was just. Can you see it? Can you see it, or is it like?
So there was a lump inside my eyelid,
Yeah.
and so it would raise up a little bit. But I, like that, and I'm like, I could pop that, but I could get a hold of it because it would move around.
It would move around.
Yeah. And it finally went to the outside.
Okay.
But it 2 weeks.
That's
it took
awful.
2 weeks, and I was just like, it wasn't satisfying.
Okay.
At all. But anyway,
I'm sorry. Bill, I'm sorry. That just popped in my head.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about is the culmination of the season of X-Men 97. It came out episodically, so every week you got a new dose of this X-Men series, and that's the first question I have for you was that the right thing for Disney Plus to do? Release it weekly, episodic, on that Wednesday.
Yes.
To come out.
Yes.
Why do you say that?
because it gives you something to talk about every week.
Yes, indeedy.
And if you think you missed something, you got to go back and watch it before you watch the next episode.
That is okay.
Because if you sit there and you burn through it,
right,
you just talk about it afterwards.
And
you're like,
that's
yeah,
it.
this is what I liked about it. And like, oh, well, did that really happen? I might have to go back and watch that. You never do that.
You never do, because you'd inevitably end up having to watch the whole thing.
Yes. Yeah.
As opposed to individual episodes.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I saw while I was on the road that Variety had released something that said that Echo was the highest rated show in terms of viewership, I think, on Disney Plus for this year. And I saw people that were saying, like, see how the wokeness of X-Men didn't work, and that's why it's underperforming, it's under Echo. But this is before the entire series was wrapped up.
Right.
So I was wondering, to that end, like, because Echo was a full drop,
right,
and we saw it all, everyone who saw it, and that was it.
Yep.
With X-Men 97 and all the acclaim that I've seen online, it's just a matter that people now have the opportunity to go back and watch it all over again, which would boost its rating signal after the fact.
Yeah.
But just because Echo happened way earlier in the year, it's been on long enough to have the highest rating thing, because it's like the major new thing that dropped on Disney Plus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought that the critique was weird.
Well, didn't it's a TV show that was based on a book that there was also a movie about it.
Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson.
Yes.
Didn't that drop this year too? Because I think that did really well.
I want to say
as
yes.
Well. But it was also, I believe it was week to week.
It was.
And I think that Disney knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And they realized that Echo was that much fun to watch that they dropped it all at one time.
Got you.
And they wanted to get it out of the way.
Right.
And just push it off to the side.
Because we really haven't seen much promotion beyond that.
Right.
Even. Like, nothing has said, like, this was their cash cow. They just did it.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, there we go. Fingers up. And that's that.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Alakwa Cox. She is a very, very sweet actress. I actually got to see her in DC in March. I was working backstage, so I didn't moderate for her, but I got to meet her very briefly, and then ended up seeing her and her husband and her little baby at the airport on the way out. And it was super sweet. She's so very nice.
That's nice.
But going back to X-Men, I think that it is a great presentation of what sort of storytelling comics has had since that show came out. Like, there's a lot of books that they leaned into, a lot of series that they leaned into that either came out after the original animated series, or were so like concurrent with the animated series that they didn't quite bring it all into it. But I thought they did a really good job overall with the scale of things that they touched. But we've talked about before how in some cases you felt like it was too fast.
Well, I will say this, that the arcing story for the season was done well.
I agree.
What I will say is that there were episodes where the story within the episode went too quickly.
Right. I just saw a video commenting on what is that, episode 4, I think, where the Goblin Queen, or is that 3? Either way,
The Goblin Queen one, yeah.
Yes.
that would be the most egregious.
Because that was a huge, like, in terms of the actual comics, like, first and foremost, like, Madeline Pryor was already established as Madeline Pryor. It wasn't a question that she thought she was Jean. She never thought she was Jean. A lot of changes that they condensed so much in there. I mean, we're talking a lot of time into that little, was it 22 minutes? Maybe it might be 30.
Well, they run in the 30s,
Okay.
but you have to take out the previously,
Right.
the opening credits,
Right.
the end
And
credits,
credits, right.
and then on top of that, all of the international stuff.
That's
they put
true.
in.
That's true.
So sometimes that can be an extra 5 or 6 minutes.
Easily. So we'll say,
But
like,
still, so the original
Right.
X-Men, we got like 19 minutes worth
Right.
of story.
Yeah.
We're getting 22 to 25 minutes worth of story.
Yeah. But that one was one that, considering that they had multiple two-parters in there, I can totally agree with you that that would have been a better episode to split up into multiple story pieces, because there's a lot that happens. I think Madeline was I don't want to say overused, but I will say she was the most exhausted character of the season, because she goes from being Jean, being pregnant, having the baby, being Goblin Queen, then being an ambassador in Genosha, a survivor of Genosha, or no, not a survivor of Genosha, but one of the victims of Genosha, and then this like ongoing, lasting memory of the whole thing. I'm like, dang! If there's anybody that's putting in more work, I don't know who that is. Like, she was so readily used throughout the entire season that I found it almost comical looking back at it. I'm like, y'all could have split that up for different people or something. Like, that's so much happening to this one character. How'd you feel about Wolverine's lack of use in this one?
I'm okay with it. I think if you rely too much on one character, when it's an ensemble, then you might as well just call it
that person's thing.
Wolverine et al.
Right.
And they did that.
Wolverine and the X-Men.
Wolverine
Yes, they did.
And the X-Men.
Yes, they did.
No, I think that he was used properly, and I think that's the way. If there was a story based upon him, which there probably will be in the second season, I would imagine, because that's when we'll find out that he still has his claws.
That's right. He's got bone claws. Spoilers. 30-year-old spoilers.
I still remember that comic book. I'm like, what's going on here? What? That's not
That's not the way that
really,
worked.
Do we?
That's not the way that worked. It's funny, the level of story evolution, to know that when he was originally created, the idea was that the claws were supposed to be a part of his gloves.
Right.
So not even in him,
Yeah.
just a part of his gloves. And now he's like, no, he always had claws. He was born with it. And they just coated those with adamantium, and they could always just retract from his hands. Okay, all right.
Well, and I guess my feeling about it more so is that that's just one more thing that he has.
Yes.
So it's like the healing factor is one thing.
Right.
But the ability to smell
Right.
is another. And then all of a sudden he's got these claws.
Yes.
And I'm like, what else are we going to give him?
What would be the next?
A tail? I don't know.
Now I want to see that.
Yeah,
I want
but
Wolverine to get a tail.
Nice furry tail.
Yeah. I mean, did Wolfsbane have a tail? She got a tail because she did full transformation into wolf, didn't she? At one point.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
She did. Well, and Nightcrawler's got a tail.
That's a different kind of tail. Now, Nightcrawler's presentation in this, that was pretty badass. I enjoyed him a lot because he was sparingly used in the original series, maybe like 2 or 3 episodes. So him showing up in this series and having the animation be up to par to like really showcase what he can do.
Yeah.
That was astounding.
That's another thing was the animation outside of Magneto's face, which it could just kind of drove me nuts after a while. There was too much going on.
Sure. At some points he did look like he was wearing lipstick and
then the voice of Charles was kind of grating.
That was is that Ross Marquand? I think he was Charles for this one. For me, like, and I like Ross as a voice actor.
Yeah.
His impressions are really, really good.
Yeah.
but I definitely felt like he was trying to do an impression of the original Charles Xavier
Yeah, it should
voice
just
actor.
been it's just a new voice.
Yeah,
It's fine.
yeah.
It's time to move on.
And it's funny how that always becomes a thing. Like when Brandon Routh did, Christopher Reeve as Superman, that was the problem. Brandon Routh could be a great Superman if you let him do it.
Yeah, but that wasn't Brandon Routh's fault.
True.
Because they wrote it as
Christopher Reeve.
yeah,
Right.
and they should have. Well, that movie was just. There was a lot I liked about that movie, but
Fair.
overall, it was disappointing.
Yes. But did you have a standout X-Men character from this season?
Yeah.
Who stood out for you?
It was Morph.
Really?
Yeah. You know why?
Why?
Because you're like, where'd that character come from? I was like, it's
it's
Morph.
Morph.
And it was almost every time too. Like, where the hell did
Wait a
Juggernaut
minute.
come from? Like,
no,
it's
that's
Morph.
That's Morph. he was playing the hits too, because the using Morph to do all the cameos was amazing. I mean, granted, there were actual cameos that were good,
but the fighting part with the
was
team,
so cool.
Yeah.
Morph not being an omega level mutant, I'm like, bullshit. The things that he could do, because he's doing not only mutants but non-mutant superpowers. So like when he did Quicksilver and could move fast, I'm like, how do you stop Morph? Like Morph is the team by himself.
Right.
Like, what are we doing? But when he was Juggernaut, though, I was like, that's magical. Like that's not a mutant. That's big powers right there. Like you guys got to put some respect on Morph's name. Like he's a wrecking house. So okay, if Morph is number one, who's your number two for the season?
I don't know that I had a number two. To
Really?
be honest.
Morph was that good.
It was just
I get it.
There was just everything was. I still hate Sinister
Sure.
because his name is Mr. Sinister, and it's right up there with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
You're like, guys,
do you really have to be evil? I mean,
do
can't you
you?
just be the Brotherhood of Mutants?
Why do you have to judge yourself? Don't do that.
Yeah, I just there. I'd never even thought about it.
I gotcha.
So I guess I was okay with most everyone else.
Yeah.
I still hate To Me My X-Men. That's so wrong.
It's so good.
It's so wrong.
Come to me. I have summoned you.
Yes.
I beckon.
You are mine.
I beckon. You answer the call.
Yeah.
When we first talked about this earlier in one of our episodes, the whole discussion of Morph being non-binary, I brought up how I would have a problem if they described him in that way, because that wasn't terminology that was readily used.
Right, if they didn't use the word non-binary.
Right.
Yes.
The only reference that I recall from this season was Jean referring to them as them. And I thought it was an interesting one that it only piqued my interest because it was something that anytime that they've discussed Morph, I've been like, what are you going to say? Are you going to say it? And the way that it was presented almost leaned more into the idea of not non-binary, but because Morph can turn into so many different people that there's like a plurality to his existence. And I'm like, that's cool. And again, it's not that I ever had any problem with the idea that Morph should identify as non-binary.
It's the fact that it's supposed to take place in 97,
Right.
and that's not a thing that happened in
That
97.
wasn't a term.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated the way that they did it without doing it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was clever. I thought it was very
I
smart.
completely missed it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
all right.
And I wasn't looking for it either,
Right.
so because I don't care.
I think that's all the more showcased that they did it right.
Yeah.
Like the only reason why I definitely saw it is because I was looking for it because I had that critique.
And if you use the term them or they, I would have immediately thought, because they can be so many
different things.
Different things.
Yeah.
That they're a plural person.
Absolutely. And it worked really, really well. So I was kind of thumbing my nose at all the anti-woke people like they did this story so very well that you can't make that argument.
Yeah.
Now, were there subtextual, sexual tensions between different characters? I think absolutely. I wouldn't. Would you be surprised if the level of intimacy of the relationship between Morph and Wolverine was something more than what we saw?
No, I think that Logan's been around for so long that
that's fair. Hey, whatever's whatever.
Yeah.
Especially because that last episode when Morph was like, Jean's not here to say it, but I can. and taking the effort to become Jean and say, an accolade of love. I'm like, that's not the first time he's ever done that. Like, clearly it's not, because he did it, as they were talking in the bar. What was that, episode 1?
Something like that. Yeah.
So like, I'm like, that's such a very interesting relationship that I want more episodes, or at least one, that kind of deals with the two of them and how they get along. Because we saw he turned into Sabretooth at one point just so that him and Logan could kind of tussle, which is, kind of it's a very intimate move. Like, you're going to turn into this guy that I hate because I'm in a bad mood. And it says so much more about what Morph is capable of to deal with Wolverine, who's supposed to be the best there is at what he does. And what he does is kill people. Morph is like, I'll turn into your bad guy. Take it out on me. I got you. Like, I can handle it. It reminds me of Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four run when Johnny died. And there's a silent issue where Banner and Thor, or Dr. Blake, I think, is how they had it set up, go to visit the Thing. He's out in the desert somewhere, and they're trying to talk to him, and he's not having it. And Banner turns into Hulk, and Thor becomes Thor, and they fight. And it's so that Thing can kind of get his aggression out. And I'm like, that's friendship. Like, that's friendship and love, and maybe a little toxic masculinity, whatever. But there's something beautiful about it that a friend could be like, hey, you know what? I see you're in a bad place. Let's work it out. Let's hash it. Like, I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, I don't think it's any gender that needs to get that aggression out.
Everybody can punch. Everybody.
Yeah.
We definitely saw Rogue throw some punches. Man. Talk to me. What's?
Just the voice. It just, I get wanting to have the original people. Yes. I understand that.
Yes.
But there's just too much time has passed by. It's time to move on.
You can hear the difference.
Yes. Yeah. And if you really want these people involved, give them a different role.
Fair.
Like the woman who was originally Jubilee gave up the role because...
Sure did.
Yeah.
Is there anyone from the original cast that, to you, still sounds exactly the same?
Nah, not really.
Okay.
There were times where it just, to me, sounded like they were in a different spot. When, maybe they recorded their voices in a different studio or something like that, or they used different equipment, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
It just sounded different.
Okay.
Like far away different.
Got you. I can say, having met her, Allison Seeley Smith, who voices Storm, that's how she talks. Like the cadence and rhythm of her voice. If I were anywhere and she started talking, I would know exactly who she was, because that is just how she sounds.
That's good.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
Like it fits wonderfully.
I just hate the way they
make her speak with such pontification,
and bringing out her powers and having to describe everything that's happening. And I'm
that's Chris Claremont's fault.
Do we need that?
No, that's Chris's fault.
We don't need that.
He would totally do that in the captions.
Just like we don't need hand gestures for like Magneto or Professor X.
Right? You don't have to put it to his temple. Like you know that his mind works. It just does it. Was there a badass moment for you? Because I think there were quite a few action pieces in this one. Was there a badass moment for you that stands out?
When Remy died, yeah.
Yeah. Gambit is my favorite character, always has been, with the X-Men, and the way he went out was tip-top.
Yeah.
I did, like, as a first run, I'm not going to lie, when I first saw the first episode and Cyclops, once they went to go find the Master Mold, that action piece, the full run of it, was my favorite. From the point of him blasting the Sentinel that had attacked the Blackbird and, landing down and, he hits that tone, give him the forecast. I'm like, what the hell? That's dope. That was my favorite action piece up until Remy. Like the visceral, emotional action that happened, I was flabbergasted. I did not see that coming under any circumstance. I didn't think they were going to go there.
All right, so a couple things about Cyclops.
Yeah.
Why does he have to wear a visor?
Because his optic glass is always on.
And why is that?
Because he had head trauma and he can't control his powers.
So you're saying
God,
that
I'm a nerd.
two people that are in the same group couldn't
Control their powers.
Well, no, they couldn't fix that.
So
Second thing.
Here's
Nope.
Because what makes that so bad is they do it. They do it in the actual show multiple times. They turn off his powers.
Yeah. Jean could do it at any point in time.
She sure could.
But doesn't do it permanently. Okay. So my other thing is, now I remember at one point in time, his visor was controlled by his glove.
Yes. So
why are we going to this? This is the dumbest thing.
I got nothing.
Like I can't use. Someone tied my hands. I can't use my visor. Oh,
I'm gonna blink at you. Yeah, because I definitely believe that with the visor originally, like that was a visual sort of thing, and they didn't Kirby didn't come up with the idea of pushing a button on his glove at the time.
But
over time they did.
But they did before '97.
That is true. That is definitely true.
And I know this because I stopped reading comics in the early '90s.
Yeah.
So
you knew it was a thing. Like he has an activator in his glove.
So I just wish they wouldn't do that thing, because that's no different than.
I wonder what he's raising his hand up for.
Like if we stop his hand. He won't be able to use his telepathy.
He can't do anything, guys. It's cool. That's fair. That is very fair. God, that's funny. I didn't even think about that. Just turn his eyes off. Like, he could be in the field all the time until you need him. Then now we activate him, and all of a sudden he's like, where did that come from? It's like, oh yeah, I could always do that, but I can't control it, so he's turn it off. But when I step on the field, it's a problem. Like, I'm getting ready to destroy everything.
Well, I mean, they could just fix it.
Fix it?
Yeah.
I mean, listen, kudos for Professor X for identifying, like, hey, when you jumped out of a plane and you hit your head, that's what did it. That's it. It's bruised. Forever. That's it. I mean,
Anyway.
Even to that point, actually, moving into current comics, the Krakoan era of things, they hit a level of immortality where if you die, they can resurrect you. And if they can resurrect you, why can't they do so without you having experienced certain traumas, like hitting your head and now you can't control your power? So at this point, Cyclops should absolutely be able to control
I guess
his
it
power.
Depends on when they can resurrect you. From the point that you died?
From the point that you died, but they actually have healers that are rebuilding your body. So if there's something wrong, why are you rebuilding that particular thing? So
right.
Yeah. Because the only part of you that has to be current is your psyche, and that's from Cerebro, like scanning you, downloading you. But your physical person, no, that's brand new, so you should be fine. It's just what was the episode that you didn't like?
Oh, the Goblin Queen.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was entirely too quick.
Way too fast.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, it was after 5. It was 6 when we saw the Shi'ar piece, and it's not even its fault that I didn't like it. It's not that it did anything wrong, but I was so still emotionally attached to.
It slowed down though.
It slowed completely down.
Yeah.
And that was the thing I didn't like about it. So it was such a left turn that I'm like, no, bring that back. I did appreciate that 7 ramped things back up, so that made me happy. But yeah, 6 was not my favorite for that very reason. I think I've only watched it once.
Yeah.
Because I didn't love it.
I've only watched the series once. I probably only will watch this. I might rewatch it before
Before
2 comes.
Okay.
Comes out whenever that is.
Right. I think it's been approved for the next 2 seasons. I think 2 and 3 got approved like right away.
Yeah, but
when that comes out, I don't know.
Right. It's just like they just greenlit Vision.
Oh, that's right. They've been talking about that for a long time.
And it's supposed to come out in 26.
Okay.
And it's being run by Terry Matalas.
Ooh.
For anyone who's watched Picard season 3.
Yeah.
Which was the best season of Picard.
That's promising.
Yes.
Okay. For season 2 of this X-Men series, should it be X-Men 97 season 2 or should it be X-Men 98?
I don't know how much time passed in the episodes we watched.
It's been at least 6 months since the characters that seemingly died, spoilers, So it's at least 6 months later after that. So there's only so long remaining in 97, as far as I can tell. So,
I have no reason to believe they wouldn't make it 98.
Yeah. I feel like having the year piece was cool.
Yeah.
But as an ongoing thing, that might be a little exhaustive.
Well, if they make the season longer, it wouldn't be that bad.
That's a very poignant point.
Yeah.
So next season, would you expect there to be 13 episodes, or is strictly 10 still?
I would hope there'd be like 12 episodes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just hope that they're paced better.
Okay. Obviously, we're gonna have a lot of Apocalypse next season. How do you feel about that as him as a character? Like, are you a fan?
It's fine.
Just fine. That's a big shrug.
It's just it's the Four Horsemen,
right?
And
we know we're gonna
it's
get that.
whatever.
Okay, all right. There is the subtle hint that those that are displaced in the past could potentially connect to the MCU by way of Kang in his Rama Tut persona. Would you care if that's?
I don't care if
happened?
Rama Tut's in it, but I don't want to see any multiverse.
Okay, all right.
I want to move past that.
Okay, I mean, I think so does Disney in Marvel.
Well, but I don't know what I still don't know what they're like. I don't think they're calling it
the Multiverse Saga anymore?
or whatever.
Okay,
I don't think that Kang is the villain for Avengers.
Gotcha.
But I have no proof to that.
Okay, it's just a gut feeling.
It just seems logical to move on, and they also don't necessarily recast. I mean, they do.
Right.
I mean,
we know they have, but not
Rhodey,
lately.
Well, no. Lately.
Yeah, no, they did, didn't they?
Thunderbolt.
Yeah, that's
Ross,
right. That's right. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Funny enough, I did see chatter online, and again, the stories that people tell themselves are quite funny. That because it was King T'Chaka that showed up in X-Men 97, that this is another statement of how Disney refuses to recast or continue the idea of T'Challa. And I'm like, did you guys not see What If? Because he definitely is T'Challa in What If. Like, what?
Well,
it's still Chadwick, for sure.
He did all the voice stuff before he died.
But the idea that they are actively refusing to acknowledge T'Challa, I'm like, no, that's not true. Like, they could have taken those episodes out if they wanted to and didn't. Like, this is not like a big conspiracy, like, oh, we got to pretend like T'Challa has never existed. I'm like, because he still does exist. Like, Civil War still exists, Black Panther 1 still exists.
Yeah.
And they're going to reference those things because those characters involved are still important. Like, we still got Bucky. I don't think that they're not going to mention Wakanda.
Well, I don't understand the logic behind that, because it let's say that this is some part of the MCU.
Right.
When did we find out that T'Challa was Black Panther?
In Civil War?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's other Black Panthers before,
Yeah.
and it was definitely
So
T'Chaka.
he just wasn't Black Panther at the time.
Right.
It's okay.
Like,
It's allowed.
yeah, because especially with the idea that if it's T'Chaka,
Yeah.
T'Challa could be there. He's just not Black Panther yet because his dad's not dead.
Yeah.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
Like, it's, yeah. I almost feel like that is the setup that we will revisit the marriage between Black Panther and Storm at some point because of this. I'm planting that flag. It's not necessarily my favorite relationship of hers, but
Isn't
whatever.
she in a relationship right now?
In comics or the show?
The show.
Yes. Ish.
Yeah, there's a relationship there.
I mean,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
There was.
There is.
Is.
I don't think it's a was. I think it's an
You
is.
think it is?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Where does she stand on the board? Do we know where she's at?
I totally forgot that they got displaced in time.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, until you mentioned it. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. That happened.
Yeah,
that thing happened.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think she should be with Magneto, personally.
Can we stop with the
shipping?
With the revolving door that is Magneto and
And
insert
X-Men.
X-Men here.
Generally speaking, you're absolutely right. But I think in terms of scale of power, I think that there should, and for lack of a better phrase, there should be an attraction between the two of them, because no one else can affect a planetary structure like they can. And I think the conversations that they would have would innately bring out a form of intimacy. Like, you understand what I can do and I understand what you can do. That's powerful.
So you're talking about this in comic books?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In comics. Not
Because
in the show.
it couldn't be in the show because there's... I don't think that it would be in the comic either, but how could she, in this show, how could she trust him?
And she could not.
She can't.
No.
Because he's changed his mind.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Yes.
Multiple times.
I'm evil. I'm not. I'm evil.
Well, I did think that they were going to lean towards it initially. Episode 2, where he was like, "You're like a goddess," and I'm like, "Oh, you're praising her. Like, you think a little highly of Storm, don't you?"
Or,
but
he's buttering her up.
Yeah, it was like, "I'm going to stab you."
Yeah,
later.
exactly.
Shank, shank, shank.
Yeah.
To that end, what did you guys think? Did you guys like X-Men 97? If you didn't, I need a good explanation as to why not. Comment below. We want to hear all about it, and maybe it might be something of conversation in an upcoming episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, I'm Victor Dandridge, hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill.
Thanks for tuning into the Chatterverse. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.